Go ahead, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. I will call the meeting to order. Welcome, everybody. I'll start off with our land acknowledgement statement. We acknowledge with respect the history, spirituality, culture of the Aniashinaabeg, the people of the Three Fires known as the Ojibwe, Odawa, Potawatomi nations who have inhabited this land from time immemorial. Further, give thanks to Chippewa Saugeen, Chippewa Nawash, now known as Saugeen Ojibwe Nation, as the traditional keepers of this land. We also recognize the Métis and Inuit whose ancestors shared this land and these waters. May we all, as treaty people, live with respect on this land and live in peace and friendship with all its diverse people. Approval of the agenda. Is there any add-ons to our agenda here tonight? See, now I'll read the recommendation. Madam Clerk, I cannot see all members on my screen, but okay, I'll read the recommendation. The amended agenda as circulated and published on January 17th, 2022 be added to the regular meeting agenda and that the agenda be approved as amended. Someone to move to put it on the floor, please. Moved by Councilor Colburn, second by Councilor Pringle. Is there any discussion on the motion before us? Seeing none, a show of hands, all in favor of the motion? And Deputy Mayor Carlton is froze, Madam Clerk, so I'm not sure.
Deputy Mayor Carlton, can you confirm that you're still present in the meeting?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
We can, yes.
Okay, so it's just the video that's froze? Okay.
So Madam Clerk, I wonder it would be appropriate if you were to call a vote.
I can certainly do so. So when I call your name, please indicate your vote. Councillor Grant Pringle.
For.
Councillor Kathy Moore Coburn.
For.
Deputy Mayor Sue Carlton. Deputy Mayor Carlton. Okay, Mr. Mayor, we're going to have to call a brief recess. If we do not have Deputy Mayor Carlton in the meeting, then we do not achieve quorum.
Okay. I'll wait for your direction.
Deputy Mayor Carlton, you can now see us and hear us.
Yes, I can.
Thank you. And Councillor Coburn, you're still with us?
I am.
Perfect, thank you. Okay, Mr. Mayor, we now have quorum. For the record, Councillor Sutherland and Councillor Barfoot are not with us, but you may continue if you could please reread and table the motion.
Okay, is Councillor Thompson with us? Yes, he is. Okay,
I am sorry. I was late. I had some connectivity problems.
no problem. Okay, I'll start again. I'll read the motion. That the amended agenda as circulated and published on January 17th, 2022 be adopted, added to the regular meeting agenda, and that the agenda be approved as amended. I believe that was moved by Councilor Coburn, second by Councilor Pringle. There's no discussion on the motion. I guess I can see everybody now. A show of hands, all in favor of the motion? The motion is carried. Thank you. Moving right along, declaration of pecuniary interest. You can clear anytime you see fit during the meeting. We're now down to public hearings. The recommendation is that the regular meeting of Committee of the Whole be recessed to host public hearings for the following zoning bylaw amendment applications. 1, Z1821 for A. Carmela for a property located at 382488 concession 17, and 2, Z1421 and B1421 for John and Pat Johnson for property located on 718129 Highway 6. Someone to move the recommendation, please. Moved by Deputy Mayor Carlton, second by Councilor Pringle. Is there any discussion on this motion before us? Seeing none, show of hands, all in favor? The motion is carried. We're down to our first public meeting. I'd like to call this public meeting to order. This meeting has been called for the purpose of considering an application for the proposed zoning bylaw amendment application Z 1621 for property located at 382488 concession 17. Would the clerk please advise those present as to the method by which the notice of this meeting was given? Brittany, please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Notice of this public meeting was given by ordinary mail to all property owners within 120 meters, 400 feet of the subject property by email to all the prescribed bodies on December 8th, 2021, posted at the subject property and posted on the Township of Georgian Bluffs website. If a person or public body does not make oral submissions at a public meeting or make written submissions to the Township of Georgian Bluffs before the proposed zoning bylaw is adopted or passed, the person or public body is not entitled to appeal the decision of the township to the local planning appeal tribunal, and the person or public body may not be added as a party to the hearing of an appeal before the tribunal unless, in the opinion of said tribunal, there are reasonable grounds to add the person or public body as a party.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Would the planner please explain the purpose and effect of the proposed application and whether any correspondence has been received to date? Jen, are you there, please?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor, and good evening, everyone. I'm going to start by sharing my screen. Okay, so this application specifically seeks relief to section 5.26 of the zoning bylaw. That is the provision for secondary dwelling units in the township. The application proposes to convert an existing garage into a secondary dwelling unit. However, the garage is actually located in the front yard of the property and wouldn't be permitted as of right. So with the planning report, there is a policy review, and the policy review does demonstrate strong support by the province and the county for additional residential units. The Grey County official plan does recognize that in rural areas, secondary suites, so like this proposed accessory dwelling unit, will be most likely the means of increasing housing affordability stock in the County of Grey. The report also reviews natural heritage and natural hazards in relation to the application. So we do have the Grey Sauble Conservation Authority who provides comments to us on those specific sections of the provincial policy statement, being section 2.1 and 3.1. Through their memorandum of understanding with the township. So with their review, they note that the proposals within an existing garage and site alteration proposed, the site alteration that is actually proposed is related to installing a new septic system. As the overall site alteration is expected to be limited, they don't anticipate negative impacts associated with the subject proposal. They do note that should any tree removal be required to accommodate the septic, they recommend that be limited to only what is necessary to accommodate that area that needs to be cleared for the system, and to avoid clearing during the breeding bird season, which would be from May 1st to August 15th in any given year. With the application, the there was a karst assessment provided by GM Blue Plan, and they note that there is no evidence of significant karst features or hydraulically active karst in the areas proposed for development on the property. They do provide some recommendations that are included in the report for development, like during the construction phase, and those recommendations can be implemented through the building permit process. So with the township's zoning bylaw, secondary dwelling units are permitted as of right. However, because this accessory structure is technically in front of the house, it's in the front yard, it's not permitted. The conversion of that unit is not permitted as of right. So the application is to grant relief to the provisions of the zoning bylaw to recognize the accessory structure where it is and permit it to be converted into a secondary dwelling unit. So the report does show that the garage has enough space to accommodate a 3-piece bathroom, a bedroom, and a living space. And I believe it is just a single-story unit. There has been no indication that the size of the garage is going to be expanded. So the comments that we received through the circulation of this, the Grace Harbor Conservation Authority have no objections to the approval. Oh, excuse me, I'm going to just backtrack for a sec here. I wanted to zoom in and just show council, or the committee, I'm sorry, where the garage is. So if you can see on the screen, with the cursor, I am circling the garage, the existing garage right now. And if you travel along the driveway, the house is behind it. So when you look at the property, it is fairly densely treed, and these structures would not be visible from the road. The proposed septic would go in behind here, where I'm just circling on the image, just behind the garage, and that's where they did a karst assessment and determined that they could put a septic to service the converted structure. I'll stop sharing my screen. So other comments that we received, so I'm sorry, the Grace Harbor Conservation Authority has no objection to the approval of the subject zoning application, provided the recommendations of the karst assessment are followed, along with measures to avoid impacts to the natural heritage features. The Grey County Planning and Development Department, in their correspondence, provided positive comments are received from the Conservation Authority regarding natural heritage features on site. The county has no further concerns with the subject application. The Saugeen Ojibwe Nation, in their comments dated December 9th, they note at this point the Saugeen Ojibwe Nation's Environment Office does not have the resources to engage in consultation on this project. We have no further comments on this project. If at any point anything of archaeological interest is revealed on site, please contact the SON Environmental Office immediately. The Risk Management Office noted that the property is not located within a source protection area where significant threat policies apply. Therefore, we have no comments on this application under the Clean Water Act. The application was circulated to residents within 120 meters of the subject property. We received comments from Jen and Brad Van Manen. In their comments dated December 13th, they note, as neighbors of this property and proposal, my wife and I dispute this proposal. No one actually resides at this residence, and it is strictly used as an Airbnb rental home. Since the recent purchase of this property by Mr. Kermali, trespassing and entry onto our adjacent property has been a continued concern. Allowing the garage to be converted into an additional residence would only increase or double the rental capacity of this property, thus increasing the entry onto adjacent lands by people unfamiliar with the rules of neighboring private properties. Comments were also received from Larry Henry, dated January 5th. Mr. Henry notes, in the matter of zoning bylaw amendment Z 1621, nowhere on the drawing does it show where the well is in relation to the existing septic or the proposed septic. Hopefully council has explored the reason for the amendment, i.e. short-term rental or residence. I have no real issue with the amendment other than having fairness for all. When I applied to build a retirement residence on the farm, which already had a residence, I was told I had to have a severance even though it was a different lot. I know of another who did the same and said they did not have to go through the process. So just in response to the concerns raised by the residents, um, the as explored in the planning report, the intent of the secondary dwelling units um, is for residential occupation. It's to provide sorry, I'm getting some feedback. It's to provide long-term or accommodation for residents in the area. It's not intended to be used for vacation rental. So that being said, the application doesn't specify that the additional dwelling unit would be used for rental accommodation. I do see that the owner and applicant is on is part of the meeting this evening. So I would defer to him to maybe further explain to council the intent of the conversion of that structure. So given that the concerns were raised by the neighbors about the application, the recommendation this evening is for committee to receive the report and for it to be submitted for information. I'd be happy to answer any questions that the committee may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Jen. No members of the public registered with the clerk to provide comments in support of or opposition to the applicant. The applicant is present to speak to the applicant. Applicant, Mr. Kamali, do you have any comments? Please go ahead.
Hello, everyone, and my respected elders and everyone on this call. I hope that your day is going well. Um, um, as for the trespassing goes, you see, our lot is quite heavily treed, so some of the trails that go back there. When I go, I don't. For example, like when I'm walking along the property. I remember the first time I took a stroll back, I did have some confusion on where my property line was, because you have to have kind of the eye to see where the markings are, because some of those get weathered away. So, in order to make sure that my neighbor is happy and comfortable, I would suggest that I mark those points better and put no trespassing signs. So maybe anybody from my family or I would not trespass onto their property. Although I see that as a small problem, because it can easily be fixed by marking the territories well. As far as the short-term rental goes, and me living on the property, I do live on the property, but in the country, it's not easy to know when somebody's home and when somebody is not home. So it's easy to say, oh, that person doesn't live there because I haven't seen him. For example, I have tried multiple times to go and say hi to the neighbors. I've only said hi to 2 of my neighbors, but because their gates are closed and it's hard to see when they come home or when they're not home. So again, it's not right for the neighbor to say that I don't live there, because I do, and my family does live in the city. So I'm kind of back and forth right now, because at the moment I'm not married. So you get tired of living alone. So when I come home, I get a good cooked, nice meals and stuff. So that's what brings me to the city. Yeah. So this dwelling, I plan on getting married in the summer, and so this dwelling would be for my wife and I to live there full time. And the I do Airbnb my place, in all honesty, and that kind of helps me with the rental payments and other expenses. Um, as far as Airbnb goes, I know many people find that that can be a tough one to deal with, but actually the site is quite well organized. For us to accept bookings as hosts of the Airbnb, we are given reviews of all the guests. So we come to know how the guests are. Are they good people that are coming? Have they been reviewed by other hosts? That's one. Number two is that Airbnb provides a $1 million liability insurance coverage, kinda. You know, so if anything goes wrong with the property or the guests do anything, they provide relief or help to hosts, even if, for example, there's change in air quality inside the home due to the guests. So they provide quite extensive coverage. Yeah, and as far as I think I've answered two questions, two concerns raised there. The third one was for the well. I don't think I would do justice if I said where the well would go, because in all honesty, I'm not a professional who drills wells. So I haven't yet put my application or had the drilling experts come and visit my property, because I thought I wouldn't need that at the moment, given just the applying for the amendment to the zoning. But once this goes through, I will do that, and I will submit the plans again for where the well would go. Yeah, and it costs quite a bit of money for me to get all those done. And yeah, so this is what I wanted to share with the rest of the people on this meeting. Yeah, thank you. And if there are any questions, I would like to answer them. Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for your comments. Does council have any questions regarding the proposed application? Councilor Barfoot, please go ahead. Welcome too, by the way.
Thank you very much. Technical difficulties, same as the other day. And anyways, I would just like to know how long this property has been owned by this gentleman, and how long has he operated a B&B?
I've I've owned it for 8 months, and the Airbnb has been operational for 5 months. I would also like to add that on Airbnb, there's a feature that allows you to select dates that you decide to release for people to book. So you can choose when you want to host and when you don't want to host. Yeah, but I've been living there for 8 months, and I've had it on Airbnb for 5 months. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, Councilor Barfoot, you got your question answered?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Jen, any comment on Airbnb on this property?
No comment on that, Mr. Mayor. What I will do is collect all of the information and bring back an addendum report for council's consideration.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Carlton, please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a further question about this garage being converted to a residence. Is the applicant saying that he is going to use that garage, or is that additional Airbnb to be rented?
Jen?
Okay. Should I answer that? Okay.
Yeah, please go ahead. Answer.
Oh, thank you. That would be used for myself, ma'am.
Deputy Mayor, go ahead.
So further question then. So you're going to live in that garage and continue to rent the main home out as Airbnb full time? Is that my understanding?
So at the moment, we have a family of my grandma moved in with us from the UK, so we have a family of 7. Once I'm married, we have a family of 8. For example, this weekend we had our family up, and we didn't have enough sleeping space, so I slept in the living room. So we do have our family come up, because my mom and dad are semi-retired, so they visit me up in the country quite often. So when my brother and his wife also visit us, we don't have enough room at the property. So yes, I would continue to Airbnb it, but again, I Airbnb for select dates that I find myself spending time in the city. And yeah, so for those dates, I section them off, and then I keep them open for other guests to book on Airbnb.
Okay. Does the Committee, any other questions? And I believe I see everybody. And Madam Clerk, I do not see anyone.
I do not see any additional hands raised, Mr. Mayor.
Council will consider all matters placed before it prior to submitting their comments to this applicant. May I please have an adjournment of this meeting? Moved by Councillor Colburn, second by Councillor Thompson. Show of hands, all in favor of adjournment of the public meeting? It's carried. Thank you. So I'll move on to our next one, next public meeting. I'd like to call this public meeting to order. This meeting has been called for the purpose of considering the applicant for the proposed zoning bylaw amendment applicant Z1421 for the property located at 718129 Highway 6. Would the clerk please advise those present by which the notice of this meeting was given? Madam Clerk, please go ahead. Sorry, Madam Clerk. Madam Clerk, before I proceed with that, I should maybe go back to my original agenda. I should read this as a motion first. I apologize.
Please and thank you. Thank you.
Because I didn't want to get into trouble. The recommendation is, it is recommended that PL 2022-2 Public Meeting Report Z1621 for A. Kamala be received for information. Someone to move to put on the floor, please. Moved by Deputy Mayor Carlson, second by Councillor Barfoot. Is there any discussion on the motion before us? See none? The show of hands, all in favor? The motion is carried. Now, please go ahead, Madam Clerk, with your report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And just for clarity for all those in attendance, we are now commencing the public meeting for zoning bylaw application Z1421. Notice of this public meeting was given by ordinary mail to all property owners within 120 meters, 400 feet of the subject property by email to all the prescribed bodies on December 14th, 2021, posted at the subject property and posted on the Township of Georgian Bluffs website. If a person or public body does not make oral submissions at a public meeting or make written submissions to the Township of Georgian Bluffs before the proposed zoning bylaw is adopted or passed, the person or public body is not entitled to appeal the decision of the township to the local planning appeal tribunal, and the person or public body may not be added as a party to the hearing of an appeal before the tribunal, unless, in the opinion of said tribunal, there are reasonable grounds to add the person or public body as a party.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Would the planner please explain the purpose and effect of the proposed applicant and whether any correspondence had been received to date? Madam Planner, please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm just going to share my screen again here. So this application is to request relief to the zoning bylaw provision for a rural lot. Mr. Johnson received approval of his consent application last night to create a 1.82 hectare privately serviced lot. So that's approximately 4.49 acres with 140 meters of frontage and a shared access. So the zoning amendment seeks relief to the minimum lot frontage required for the retained rural lot. So that's the lot that's left over. You can see here in the table, the retained lot would be 33.9 hectares, which meets the provisions of the bylaw. However, it will only have 168 meters of frontage, and the zoning bylaw requires 200 meters. The other concern is that there will be a shared access and not an individual access. And you can see here on this revised drawing that the proposal is to allow a portion of the existing driveway to be added to the newly severed property for access. So the planning report does provide a policy review, and the application does meet the lot creation policies of the County of Grey official plan. The proposed lot is outside of any identified natural heritage features. However, comments that we've received from the Grace Level Conservation Authority note that should bobolink or eastern meadow lark be encountered prior to development of the severed parcel, the owner is to contact the MECP. The applicant, in support of the application, did provide a karst assessment to meet county policy. The documentation provided shows that there are no or minimal karst features on the subject land and no concerns are noted. So the applicant did submit documentation with the application from the Ministry of Transportation that confirms a mutual access is permitted off of Highway 6. So a zoning bylaw amendment application is being presented to council to recognize that deficient lot frontage for the retained lot as well as the shared access. Comments that we have received to date, in the report, you'll notice that we have a number of comment submissions. So that's because we've had some revisions to the application and recirculation. So the Ministry of Transportation is supportive of the consent application and the supporting zoning amendment. They will require land transfer documents and a sketch showing the two parcels and the proposed location of the mutual entrance. So there are permitting requirements that the applicant must meet with the Ministry of Transportation. Grace Level Conservation Authority have no objection to the application. They just note that the landowner should contact the MECP should any endangered or threatened species be encountered on the property. The Grey County Planning Department reiterate comments that were previously submitted. They do defer to the MTO for the shared access and the easements, but they acknowledge that this mode of access is not generally encouraged on county roads. They have no further concerns with the subject application. The Saginaw Ojibwe Nation provided comments dated December 14th. And they note, at this point, Saginaw Ojibwe Nation's Environment Office does not have the resources to engage in consultation on this project. We have no further comments on this project. If at any point anything of archaeological interest is revealed on site, please contact SON Environmental Office immediately. The Risk Management Office notes that this property is not located within a vulnerable source protection area where significant threat policies apply. They have no further comment on this application under the Clean Water Act. We received comments from Mr. Rick Bumstead, and in his undated comments that we received in December, he noted, "I have no problem with this," referring to the application. So the recommendation, as noted in the report, is to approve the application. It has been demonstrated that the application is consistent with the PPS 2020, the county official plan, and the intent of the Township of Georgian Bluffs zoning bylaw. And I would be happy to answer any questions that the committee may have.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. No members of the public registered with the clerk to provide comments in support of or opposition to the application. The applicant is present to speak to the application. Mr. Johnson, if you're there, if you have any comments, please go ahead. John, you still there?
Mr. Johnston, you are muted.
Am I unmuted now? Thank you, Your Worship, members of council, for the opportunity. I'd like to understand maybe better what MTO's comments were all about. I have a letter from them saying the only thing I really need to do is get an entrance permit, just for the entrance I have. So I'm not sure of what their comments are about, but maybe I can address that with Jan later on. I have no other concerns about the rezoning. I may have some concerns certainly about the severance conditions, and I'll deal with those maybe directly with council or however I can do that. But other than that, I'm okay with how it's gone. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. So I'll guess, Jen, I'll let you talk to Mr. Johnson about his concerns with the MTO. Okay. Does council have any questions concerning the proposed applicant? Seeing none. Council will consider all matters placed before it prior to submitting their comments to the applicant. May I call for an adjournment of this public meeting, please? Moved by Councillor Barfoot, second by Councillor Colburn. There's no discussion. A show of hands, all in favor of adjournment? The motion is carried. I have a recommendation here. It has been demonstrated that the proposed application is consistent with the Provincial Policy Statement 2020, the county official plan, and the Township of Georgian Bluff zoning bylaw amendment, zoning bylaw 2020. It is recommended that zoning bylaw amendment application Z1421 for John and Pat Johnson be approved. Someone to move to put on the floor, please. Moved by Councillor Barfoot, second by Deputy Mayor Carlton. Is there any discussion on the motion before us? See none, a show of hands, all in favor of the motion? The motion is carried. Thank you. So I'll move on our agenda. We've no delegations. We've no correspondence. We're down to staff reports. The first one is finance. I will read the recommendation first. That report FI1 2022-1 2022 budget survey results be received, and that staff are hereby directed to consider the public feedback received during the 2022 budget process while preparing the 2022 operation and capital budget. Someone to move to put on the floor, please. Moved by Deputy Mayor Carlton, second by Councillor Colburn. And I believe, Madam Treasurer, you here to speak to it? Sam?
I am, yes.
Please go ahead.
Okay. So just to summarize, the 2022 budget survey went live to the public on September 23rd, and we had closed it on November 26th, 2021. Upon closing, we had received 121 responses, and the report goes through and summarizes many of those responses that were received. In regards to the donation policy, staff will be bringing forward a separate report to summarize the specific comments received towards that. And we will be talking about implementation of that donation policy that was previously presented to committee. The report goes through the various services and summarizes the levels of satisfaction related to the different services and any specific comments that were received. I'm happy to take any questions council has.
Thank you, Sam. Does council have any questions? Deputy Mayor Carlton, please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Not really a question, just a comment. It seems like this year's budget survey got better responses. I'm pleased to see that it seems like the majority are satisfied with the level of service that's being offered. And I'm really happy to see the different suggestions that are made and that will be coming back as reports to council. I think there's definitely something for us to learn from that one. So, and an excellent report. So thanks very much for that.
Thank you. Any other comments from council members? Councilor Colburn, please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would just note that the response rate was really low, and I would just caution council about extrapolating the results to the larger population because of the low response rate. I did find the comments to be helpful, but I do want us to look at the results of the survey with a fair amount of caution. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Colburn, and I do tend to agree with your comments. Is there any other comments or questions from council members? Seeing none. So a show of hands, all in favor of the motion before us? The motion is carried. So moving on for next item is into operations. The recommendation is that report OPS 2022-01 be received for information. Moved by Councillor Thompson, second by Councillor Pringle. Put it on the floor. Mr. Dolmar, are you going to speak to this report?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to committee members, as per the requirements of the Safe Drinking Water Act, an annual inspection of the East Linton water system was completed, and we received an inspection rating of 100% for the facility.
Thank you. Does council have any questions on this report? I see there's no flags raised on any one of these reports. Steve, that's about the extent of my ability on it, but I see no red flags, so I think we're okay. Does council have any questions on this motion before us? Seeing none, a show of hands, all in favor of the motion? The motion is carried. Moving on to our next report. That report OPS 2022-02 we received for information. Someone to move put on the floor, please. Moved by Deputy Mayor Carlson, second by Councillor Thompson. Mr. Domar, please go ahead.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to committee members, as per the requirements of the Safe Drinking Water Act, an annual inspection of the Oxenden water system was completed, and we received an inspection rating of 100% for the facility as well.
Thank you, Steve. Any comments? Seeing none, a show of hands, all in favor of the motion before us? The motion is carried. And our last report is the report OPS 2022-04 be received for information. Someone to move to put on the floor, please. Moved by Councillor Barfoot, second by Councillor Pringle. Mr. Domer, please go ahead.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to committee members, this is the last water report I've got. So as per the requirements of the Safe Drinking Water Act, an annual inspection of the Shallow Lake water system was completed, and we received an inspection rating of 100% for this facility as well.
Thank you, Steve. Council have any questions or comments? I do not see any. So show of hands, all in favor of the motion before us? The motion is carried. Now we're down to the clerk's department. The recommendation is that report LEG 2022-01 sale of Wharton Keppel International Airport be received for information, and that a portion of the proceeds from the sale of Wharton Keppel International Airport be allocated to outstanding balance of the loan used to purchase the facility totaling $205,000, and that the remaining of the sale proceeds be held in reserves for future opportunities and initiatives. Someone to move to put on the floor, please. Moved by Deputy Mayor Carlton, second by Councillor Colburn. Madam Clerk, please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So to provide just a brief overview of the report that committee has in front of you this evening to consider, following a competitive process and an open process, the Wharton Keppel International Airport was placed for sale in September of 2021, at which time council considered any and all offer for purchase of the facility. Following a negotiation period and a bidding process, council did accept an agreement of purchase and sale from Mr. Clayton Smith. The offer was conditional for a 2-week period and closed on December 17th of last year at a total purchase price of $2.6 million. All assets, leases, and contracts in existence at the facility were transferred to the new owner. Therefore, there was no operational or financial impact to our leaseholders at the airport facility. And essentially, throughout the transition, it has continued to operate as business as usual. So just briefly about the buyer, Mr. Smith, as you are aware, has also purchased the Owen Sound Airport and has extensive experience in running airports throughout the province of Ontario and developing them as a business asset, and thereby facilitating a assistance to the communities that he's welcomed into as well. So throughout the transition process, staff have been working with Mr. Smith and his staff to ensure that the transition has been smooth and ensure that they have the resources that they needed to get on site and really get boots on the ground and continue operations as smoothly as possible. So in considering the financial considerations in regards to the sale of this asset, as I said, the final purchase price of the facility was $2.6 million. The largest thing to highlight is by closing the deal prior to the new year, this council has avoided any budgetary allocations for the 2022 budget. Therefore, we are no longer responsible for any operating or capital costs at the facility moving forward. Staff are proposing that out of that $2.6 million proceed, we pay back the outstanding balance of the loan, being the $205,000 that was included in the motion this evening. There are no penalties that the township will incur as a result of that lump sum payment. We have confirmed that with our banking provider. And the remainder of the proceeds will remain in reserves for future planning and initiatives. And with that, Mr. Mayor, I would open it up to any questions of council.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Does council have any questions on the motion before us? Councillor Barfa, go ahead.
Just out of curiosity, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just out of curiosity, normally when we put things in reserves, it's a specified reserve, but this, you said this is just a reserve. Well, what are the guidelines for the use on this? Or the specifications?
Madam Clerk, please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you to Councillor Barfoot. Thank you for the question, Councillor Barfoot. It will be placed in a general reserve to ensure that we have the flexibility when we need it to use the funding as council deems appropriate.
Okay. Did that answer your question, Councillor Barfoot?
Not really.
Mr. Mayor, if I may, it may be beneficial to have our treasurer, Samantha, speak to this.
Yeah, please go ahead, Sam.
So through you, Mayor, to Councillor Barfoot, it would be placed in our working capital reserve, which is the same reserve that we place our annual surpluses in.
Thank you, Sam.
I believe Sam sort of cut out, but I believe we got her response. There's no other questions of council. I'll ask a show of hands. All in favor of the motion before us? The motion is carried. We're down to our next recommendation. That report LEG 2022-02, 2022 election services be received, and that RFP 2021-25 hybrid election technology and services be awarded to Psycha Canada, and I apologize if I said that wrong, Psycha Canada at a total cost of $30,585, and that election night features be purchased from Psycha Canada at a total cost of $8,927, and that a bylaw to authorize alternate voting methods be presented at the February 2nd, 2022 meeting of council. Someone to move to put on the floor, please. Moved by Deputy Mayor Carlton, second by Councilor Pringle. Madam Clerk, please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And again, just to provide a brief overview of the report you have in front of you this evening. As you are aware, with the new year, we are jumping in feet first with our elections planning in preparation for the upcoming election in October of this year. And as council will further recall, in 2020, council enacted and supported a resolution to host a hybrid voting election, which will marry online, telephone, and in-person voting methods for the 2022 election, thereby allowing the elector to choose the method they would like to vote with, and hopefully in turn raising our voter percentage from the 36% that we saw in 2018. So in the fall of last year, we circulated an RFP for the hybrid model, again, asking for our submitters to provide options for online, telephone, and in-person voting. Now, due to an industry-wide shortage, tabulators are very hard to come by at the moment. So our larger counterparts, being the city centers of Ontario, are finding that they have kind of first dibs on the tabulators because they have larger orders to place, whereas we only have a few a need for a few. So while we are still exploring our options in that regard, it is likely that we will, as staff and as election administrators, facilitate the count by a hand count rather than a tabulator. And while that is not my first choice, it's definitely something that we can work with, and it will be a cost savings to our election budget as well. So in response to the RFP, we had one submission from Seidel Canada. Now, I understand there's some optics around receiving only one bid to an RFP. I am not at all concerned with that, given the niche market of these services. And I have met with Seidel and their project managers and am fully confident that they can help us deliver a successful election in 2022. So it is my recommendation to council this evening that we award the RFP to Seidel Canada for a total cost of $30,585. Further, I'm recommending that we purchase the election night module from Seidel. That's an additional cost to that $30,000, and that election night will help council in providing metrics by breaking down how people vote and when they vote. So we have the statistical data to inform the voting method that we choose in 2026. Not only that, they provide a public portal for both candidates and the public to go online and view real-time statistics as to which councillor and which office has select votes placed to it. So that is my recommendation this evening, and I'm here to answer any questions.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Does council have any questions? Seeing none? Madam Clerk, may I ask, how does this compare to 2018?
So in 2018, our total election budget was in and around the $30,000 mark, given that we only had online and telephone voting. So therefore, we were only facilitating the portion that Seidel has bidded on. So this is right in line with where I thought we would be and where we were in 2018.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Seidel, thank you for that. If there's no other questions from council, show of hands, all in favor of the motion before us? I believe the motion is carried. Thank you, Madam Clerk. Moving on, we're down to animal control. That report LEG 2022-03 regarding animal control services be received, and the committee hereby supports execution of the animal control service agreement with Owen Sound Animal Shelter for animal control services for years 2022, 2023, 2024, and 2025, including a 2% increase in monthly fees per year, and that a bylaws or authorized agreement be presented at the February 2nd, 2022 meeting of council. Someone to move to put it on the floor, please. Moved by Councillor Colburn, second by Councillor Thompson. Madam Clerk, please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And again, just briefly, so our contract, our agreement with the Owen Sound Animal Shelter for provision of animal control services expired on December 31st, 2021. Throughout the fall of last year, I was working with our contractor, being the Owen Sound Animal Shelter, to facilitate and draw up a new agreement to cover the township's needs over the next 4 years. So that is the agreement that you see this evening, essentially an update of the services that we have been provided for quite some time from that service. And through our review, I did complete a market check to evaluate the township's options in providing these animal control services to our ratepayers. Now, given our I don't want to say our remoteness, but given again the niche service that this Owen Sound Shelter provides to us, they are one of the only providers within our area that can provide these services to the township. So I did confirm that through the market check. And that's why you don't see an RFP completed for this, because again, they are one of the sole providers for this service. So in the absence of awarding this contract to the Owen Sound Animal Shelter, we would not be forced to, but have to evaluate our options of bringing the service in-house at a larger cost to the township. So it is my recommendation that we continue our partnership with the Owen Sound Animal Shelter by resolution, by approval of council this evening.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Excuse me. Does council have any questions on the motion before us? Seeing none, a show of hands, all in favor of the motion? The motion is carried. Moving on, we're down to planning now. The recommendation is that committee approve consulting planning services provided by Buckton Consulting Incorporated to be a single source and funding from working capital reserves up to a maximum of $21,000. Someone to move to put on the floor, please. Moved by Councilor Colburn, second by Deputy Mayor Carlson. Madam Clerk, please go ahead. No, Madam Clerk, Madam Planner, please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So the report is pretty straightforward. I'm just requesting some support in the planning department, given that we've had substantial vacancies. I would like to request that the committee supports waiving the purchasing policy so that this contract can be single sourced. I have reached out to a local planner. She does not have any applications in with the township, so her consulting service would be able to provide single planning file work. So what that effectively is going to be is assistance with writing reports, drafting notices, and just providing that assistance that the junior planner position provides. The company is run by Liz Buckton, and she is a very experienced planner. There's no need for me to provide any direction on how to complete the on how to process the applications. She actually has over 10 years of experience. She's the former planner at the municipality of Meaford and has moved into her own consulting company. So if we were to go out for an RFP, it would take at least 9-10 weeks, and I need the assistance now. So I'm asking the committee to consider waiving that purchasing policy, and the funds for this would come from the vacant planner position from 2021.
Thank you, Madam Planner. Madam CEO, any comments? You're still muted, Cynthia.
Sorry, apologies, folks. And through you, Mr. Mayor, when Jennifer and I met over the last couple of weeks, it became very clear that we need to provide some support to our planning area. And so this was one of my thoughts was, could we contract out some services? So I do hope that committee will support staff's recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam CEO. And it's a great report. Council have any questions? Seeing none, a show of hands, all in favor of the motion before us. I believe the motion is carried. Moving on for agenda, public question period. Madam Clerk, was there any questions from the public? No. We've no unfinished business. We've no new business. We're down to notice of motion. Does any council member have a notice of motion do you want to bring forward? Seeing none. I'll move on the agenda. We're now down to our closed session. That the committee of the whole move into closed session at, I believe it's 5:59 with the CEO, clerk, director of operations to discuss one, a position, plan, procedure, criteria, or instructions to be applied to any negotiation carried on or to be carried on by or on behalf of the municipality or local board. Someone to move to put on the floor, please. Moved by Councilor Colburn, second by Councilor Barfoot. Is there any discussion of the motion before us? Seeing none? Show of hands, all in favor? Thank you, everybody. The motion is carried. We're now in camera, so please go out and go back in on your closed session agenda.
Okay, Mr. Mayor, please go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Committee moved into closed session to discuss matters under closed meeting exemption K of section 239 of the Municipal Act. As a result of closed discussions, the following actions were given. Direction was provided to staff. So we know the business here tonight. Our next meeting is February the 2nd at 5 o'clock. I would now ask for a motion to adjourn, please. Moved by Councillor Colburn, second by Councillor Pringle. If there's no discussion, a show of hands, all in favor of adjournment? We are now adjourned. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Madam Clerk. Madam CEO.
Thanks, folks. Have a good evening.